Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I'll be talking about one of my favorite topics in the English language, and that is verb tense. So we'll be talking about all different times in English and how that changes the verb. So whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced level learner, I think there'll be some interesting information in this video that can help you with your studies in English. Okay, so let's begin. So what do we need to know about English tenses before we start? Well, English, unlike some languages, always has a tense. So you always have to talk about time with all of your verbs if they're conjugated, and sometimes you could talk about verbs even if they're unconjugated, which we will get to later. So let's talk about the first most important English tense, and that is the present tense. For the English present tense, it's very simple. For our simple tense, you'll use that for things that happen in general in the present, but sometimes these events sometimes happen in the past and in the future, but usually overall happens in the present. Then we also have an emphatic present tense, which can be used to emphasize something or to confirm or deny something as well. But the key point is it's for emphasis. Okay, for the simple present tense, that is actually the only tense in English that changes based on the subject. In many other European languages, the end of the verb changes for every subject, but in English, only he, she, or it, which is the singular third person pronoun, gets added an s or es in the simple present tense. For example, I eat, you eat, he eats, we eat, they eat. And also, like every other tense, be has an exception, and it changes for all of the different subjects. It's actually the only verb in English that does this. So I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, and they are. Okay, and for the emphatic present tense, you'll conjugate do and then add the infinitive or the first principal part after. So, for example, I do eat, you do eat, he does eat, we do eat, they do eat. Okay, so when do you use this emphatic tense? When you're confirming something or denying something. So, for example, person A says, "You speak way too fast. I can't understand you." Person B will say, "I do say things too quickly when I'm excited. Sorry." That is for confirmation. When you want to deny something, you can also use this tense. So, for example, person A says, "I never ignore you. I don't understand what you're talking about." Person B will say, "You do forget to text me back all the time." So that is for denial, for denying something. And just in general, when you want to emphasize something, you can use this tense. I really do have trouble falling asleep when I hear your music. And the two tenses are actually very closely related. They're not actually about two different times at all. They're pretty interchangeable, because if you want to negate a simple present tense verb, you're going to have to change it to the emphatic form and add not. So, for example, I only drink cold water. That's the simple present tense. But if you wanted to negate it, you would have to say, I don't only drink cold water. I drink other things, right? And this example can prove to you that these two tenses are actually about the exact same time. These two sentences are exactly the same, but the only difference is one is negated and one is positive. One's positive, one is negative. So really you can think of them as two different versions of the same exact tense. Okay, so the next duo of tenses that we're going to be talking about is the past tense and the emphatic past tense. So the situation is actually very, very similar to the simple present tense and the emphatic present tense. The past tense is probably either the easiest or the hardest tense in the English language. You're going to use the second principal part that you've learned for all the verbs. So sing, sang, sung, you just use the second one, sang. For take, took, taken, you'll just use took. And this could be the easiest thing ever because there's not much thinking involved, just rote memorization, or it could be the hardest because it is rote memorization. And sometimes the past tense are kind of confusing to remember. Actually, among native English speakers, they think this is probably the hardest thing about the English language, that is the simple past tense. It's so difficult to remember all these different past tense. Sometimes it's ed, usually it's ed. But for some very, very common verbs, it'll be some change of the vowel or some form that looks completely different. So be careful about that. And just memorize more, study more, practice more. And of course, be has to cause a lot of trouble, and that actually is the only verb in English that changes depending on the subject in the past tense. So you'll have I was, you were, he, she, it was, we were, and they were. So they're all different. You have to be very careful which one you choose. But luckily, this is the only verb that this happens with, be. And that's going to be something very common in English. Be is always an exception. So the simple past tense is going to be for actions that happened in the past for a number of times, and they were fully completed. You form the emphatic past tense with do in the past tense, which is just did, and another infinitive or a first principal part. The situation with the emphatic past tense is actually very similar. So you're going to use the emphatic past tense when you want to confirm, deny, or emphasize something in the past tense. So person A says, I don't remember seeing you come to the party last night. Person B will say, I did come around 7 p.m., but I left after 15 minutes. So, did come is a way to confirm what happened. And just like the present tense, these two are actually not about different times at all. They're actually interchangeable when you're negating the verb. So, for example, I drank a lot of water in the past tense. And in the negative, you'll say, I didn't drink a lot of water. Those two are the simple past tense and the emphatic past tense, but they're actually very interchangeable, meaning those two actually cover the exact same time in the timeline. Okay, the next tense has a pretty simple meaning, but it's actually very interesting, I think, as someone who's very interested in the history of English. So, the future tense is formed with will, which will never change based on the subject, and you will add an infinitive or a first principal part. I think the interesting thing you can note from this construction is that we don't actually have a special form of the verb. So we maybe have special forms drink, drank, like sing, sang, sung, eat, ate, eaten, which shows that these are very, very historical forms. But with the future tense, because we are using an auxiliary verb and a basic form of the verb, this kind of shows that it was constructed very recently in history. So maybe some of you know this word, but it's a little bit rare, so maybe beginners don't know this word. Will is actually a verb that still exists in the English today to mean want. So in modern English, this sounds very old, and we're probably talking maybe religion when we're using this verb. Probably something like God wills it. So you can tell this is a normal verb. You can add s to the third person singular. But as an auxiliary verb in the future, it never changes. It was actually created pretty recently. That's pretty interesting to me that English traditionally never had a future tense, but we created one because we really wanted to talk about the future tense. So the meaning of this tense is actually pretty simple. It's just about events that will happen after now. So, for example, I will go to bed after dinner. We will travel across the world. Both can be okay in some contexts, but maybe in some other context, we prefer to use maybe other constructions, maybe sometimes even the present tense, maybe going to. So it just depends on the situation. Usually will is something about very definite or very far in the future, either one of those. Now we're getting into the more interesting tenses in English, and that's the perfect tenses. So normally I'll call this group of tenses an aspect. This is the perfective aspect, according to me. Not everybody says this. Maybe it's similar to the word perspective, about what you're looking at, maybe the angle from which you're looking at something. So when we're talking about the perfective aspect, we're talking about verbs when we are looking from one tense to a time before that. So it's not truly a past tense, but we are looking towards the past from another point in time. So let's take the most simple version of this, the present perfect tense. So what can you guess about this tense from the name? So it's in the present tense, and from what I told you just now, perfect aspect is about looking towards the past from a time. So the present perfect is happening now, but looking towards the past. The present perfect tense is formed with a present version of have and a past participle, which is the third principal part. For example, you can say, I haven't done my homework yet. So really, this is about the present tense. Right now, this has some present consequences. Maybe I have to do my homework. Maybe I want to do my homework. Maybe I don't have it for you right now. It can mean many things about the present, but we're looking towards the past. We are thinking about things I did today or I didn't do today. It's really happening now, but we're focusing on things that happened in the past. Maybe this will make more sense with other examples. You can say, oh no, I've forgotten my cell phone at home. This probably means this person has to go right now. This has some present consequence. Maybe this person really needs to go right now. This has some present consequences. I'm going to do something now because of something that really started in the past. Okay, here is some comparisons with the simple past tense that shows you the connection to the present. Let's take a couple examples. He lived in Paris for 3 years. In this sentence, this person maybe lived in Paris in 2004, left in 2007, and this thing is done. Living in Paris is an action that is completed. It's done in the past, no connection to the present really. Then you can say, he has lived in Paris for 3 years. This is the present perfect tense. It's happening now, we're looking towards the past. So this person is currently living in Paris. Maybe they started living there in 2017 from the time I'm making this video. And now it's been 3 full years and it continues into the present. It has a connection to the present. And that's what the perfect tense, the present perfect tense is about. Okay, so the next tense we'll be talking about is the past perfect tense. So before I even give an example, what could this be about? It's an event that happens in the past that looks towards the past. So maybe it has some type of super past meaning. We're looking towards the past of the past. So this is formed with a past tense of have, which is had, and the past participle or third principal part. So to use the past perfect tense, there has to be another verb in context or in the sentence that gives you some type of reference point to what you're looking at. Why are you looking towards the past from the past? So, for example, my mom came into my room to wake me up, but I had already been awake for 30 minutes. So had been is our past perfect here. It's the past perfect tense of be. So my mom came in at 8 a.m., but I was already awake when that happened. The waking up, the being awake, started at 7:30. So when we're looking at the time that mom came in, 8 a.m., we're looking towards an event that's already in the past. It's at 7:30. This is 30 minutes before mom entered the room. So this is the situation that you might use a past perfect tense. That's when you're thinking about super past situations. There's some other point of reference before that. Okay, so the next tense is the future perfect tense. Before I even give you an example, let's guess. So future is the real tense here. It happens in the future and we're looking towards the past. So it's sometime before that future moment. So you're going to form this with will have and the past participle or third principal part. Let's have an example. I will have made dinner by the time you come home at 5. So in this situation, nothing here is done. Everything's in the future. Coming home is really the point of reference. That's in the future. And making dinner is something that's already done by the time you come home. So let's think of it in terms of maybe the timeline. So you come home around 5 o'clock and I finish dinner around 4:30. So maybe right now it's the morning time and I'm telling you about later today. But the point is that the dinner, which is in the future, happened in the past according to the point in time where you come in. So another way to look at the perfect tenses is about verbs that actually don't have any tense at all. You can still make them perfect verbs. For example, we can say, after having just committed a crime, the criminal ran out of the bank. So ran out is the verb in this sentence, and having committed is actually the perfect verb here. It's a noun because it is the object of a preposition. It comes after needs some type of noun after that, and you could also say after committing a crime, but this really emphasizes the committing of the crime is already done. The crime is done, people are hurt, something bad happened, it's already done, then that criminal ran out of the bank. Hopefully you learned something new from this video. Maybe you already knew it, but maybe you learned some interesting facts today, or you just wanted to review over what you already knew. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon for another English teaching video. Bye bye.